Hurry, hurry, hurry! Come one, come all, come see this spectacle of greatness, this glory of combat, of gladiatorial games, of this spectacle of mayhem, this sensational spectacle of mayhem at the county fair. Welcome to episode 46 of Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling. And we are in a summer carnival mood, folks, here on the show because I have a lot on the itinerary for today, but you see the sign right in front of you? This is yet another show in the Indy Showcase list, which is a list of shows that I personally go to and I want to cover on the program for Wacky World of Wrestling. And well, today's program, we once again cover my local regional promotion, Southern Tier Wrestling, based in Jamestown, New York, my hometown. And well, their show was not in Jamestown this time, but instead, and I said Fairgrounds earlier, the Chautauqua County Fair in Dunkirk, Fredonia, New York. Now, the Chautauqua County Fair has been going on for 124 years since the county was formed, basically. County fairs were used as a means to raise income for counties during the dry season in the summer when the crops were growing and food and harvest and all that other sort of stuff was being bought and sold. County fairs became a historical spectacle for people to come and see varieties of things, ranging from animals to, well, pro wrestling. Pro wrestling got its start in the carnival era in the United States in the 1800s. Traveling carnivals would go from show to show and would showcase professional wrestlers engaging in either feats of strength or eras of feats of strength, daring acrobatics, or facing against diabolical heels. The face and heel alignment basically started in the carnival era. And this, well, is a carnival show, or more specifically, a county fair show, which means it's going to be a sensational spectacle of mayhem. And it lived up to every bit of the hype that it had. Now, this was a show that I did not know if I was going to be able to attend this one because of scheduling conflicts, as well as the fact that I went through a gauntlet week. This is why the show has been slightly delayed more so than usual. Because I started going solo on these podcasts recently, folks. And for those of you who are returning viewers who are going to be listening to this show, yeah, I've started doing a lot more solo shows recently. And it's been quite a very enjoyable experience, especially with this new microphone that I have. It's a Santium P25 unit that I got back at the start of the year that has turned out to make podcasting considerably easier for me since I'm not shouting into a microphone at about a million miles per hour and hoping that the thing doesn't start conking out like it had been doing recently. So I've got my show notes, which are on my Twitter account at Fizzpatrick14 for those of you who want to follow along. And I shall talk about my story about this show. Now, Midway Mayhem, this is the second year in a row that Southern Tier Wrestling has done shows at the county fair. And they did this at the pavilion, which is known as the Budweiser Pavilion, which is the demolition derby slash bull riding slash horse racing track at the county fairgrounds. And I was 10 minutes late. To start off with, I need to make a little disclaimer here. I missed the first two matches and the opening segment of this show. However, you can catch them on the TMK Pro Wrestling Photography Facebook page, which is run by one of the photographers that was covering this show, which will showcase the opening segment and the first two matches. Now, the opening segment for this card was the introduction of a brand new 40 angle that I will be talking about a little bit later on the show. But first, let's talk about how we got here. I had a very busy gauntlet-fueled week to start things off, and like I said, I wasn't exactly sure if I was going to be making this show or not. But I ended up making it. Like I said, 10 minutes late. So what happened was in this situation is we got caught out in traffic on Route 60, and then we had to traverse the vast parking lot that is the Chautauqua County Fairgrounds. The parking lot of the fairgrounds is located in the very back of the fair. The grandstand is located on the other side of the fair. So basically, we had to walk over to the grandstand area, which is about a mile walk or so. And then we basically took our seats. Now, the great thing about this event is that this was an event that was a showcase event for the wrestling. So basically, all you had to do was pay your admission, and you're in. Yeah. So I spent about $12 on general admission tickets, which is about $2 more than I usually spend. I usually spend about $10 on general admission tickets, and then I spend money on merchandise so that the wrestlers can actually get home, have a nice dinner, pay for their gas, regardless. And what happened here is that it was, well, it's still a learning place, but I realized that and I had that in the budget. Also, my mother came along with me for this show, so we got to enjoy the insane spectacle of madness that was Midway Mayhem from match 3 onwards. Now let's talk about our opening segment. The show began proper with the devious, diabolical John Kennedy gloating about his, well, beatdown of Frankie Fevers at the STW Fight Night Volume 1 show. And, well, was also showcasing that Frankie wasn't here. The theme of this show was basically there were a lot of wrestlers here that were either new or people that hadn't been here in a while. And so, what they needed to do was they needed to set up an angle to show why the Divine Alliance wasn't on this card. And, well, this was a great way to do that because it also introduced our authority figure for the night. Remember Rico Cruz from Rise of the Cobra? Yes, that guy. The guy that retired? Well, he's the authority figure for today's show. And, well, what a good job he did in the opening segment. He basically forces John Kennedy to flee the premises because he doesn't like the fact that he's trying to take control of STW, while the commissioner, Randy Gray, is away on business. So, yeah, it was one of those situations where it showcased, okay, we have an acting authority figure, and great. This was a babyface commissioner, and Rico excelled, as we will see, in that role. First match was Nick Merrick taking on Mikey Everynight, with Steve Gange in Mikey Everynight's corner. I've talked about the patron saints of professional wrestling before on these indie showcase shows because they're on every card, but the patron saints of pro wrestling in the Southern Tier area are comprised of Mikey Everynight, Steve Gange, Terrell Kenneth, and Brandon Thurston, the diabolical leader of the patron saints. Every night tried to cheat every conceivable way in this match against Nick Merrick. But Merrick overcame this. He also had a pivotal part to play in another segment. This also showcased one of the segments that the show was running throughout the entirety of the card. The patron saints attempting to do diabolical evil things, and the babyfaces counteracting that. Interference in the form of Gange in every night during this match was the reason why he got involved in another segment later on in the card. The second match, which I actually caught the very end of, was DT versus Dewey Murray. Now, Dewey has had a bit of a winning streak going on in Southern Tier Wrestling recently. He defeated Ronnie Hartman at the last show, which was Fight Night Volume 1, and here he faced against DT. This was a traditional pro wrestling match in that babyface went over the heel because Dewey Murray has recently turned babyface on STW cards. And DT is still a diabolical heel because he's associated with the maniacal Brian Cassidy and his friend Cloudy, which I'll be talking about later on in the program. Yes, these two, well, they had a part to play in the main event. So obviously DT had a situation where he had to face against Dewey Murray and his finely tuned trucker physique, which backfired spectacularly. So once we traversed the parking lot and made it through the convention center, there's a small farmstead that acts as a way for vendors to sell wares in an indoor market. We made it to the grandstands, walked over to a section right in the middle of the ring, in the top section, right over where the guy was doing the live feed recording for this show. So if some of the matches start showing up on YouTube, well, that's the angle that you're seeing from. And we begin with match 3, officially proper, of Southern Tier Wrestling's Midway Mayhem. And we start with the ring announcer and his Hawaii 5-0 look because he decided to wear a Hawaiian shirt with sunglasses. It is the summer after all, and unlike DT, he actually wore sunglasses outdoors, not indoors like DT did at the Fight Night show. And we are greeted by the presence of the King of Cleveland himself, which is currently sinking into the Cuyahoga as we speak because a certain basketball player decided to go play for the Los Angeles Lakers. Give it up one time for J-Rock Daddy. Yes, J-Rock is back on the Indy Showcase list and is making his first appearance for Southern Tier Wrestling in 2018. Now, he is looking to uphold Cleveland honor by beating the bejesus out of whichever wrestler they match him up with. Hopefully, the person they match him up with is going to be able to, be able to defeat him. J-Rock actually has a fairly good record in STW. He's won a few matches, he's lost a few matches. And he thinks he's in Johnsburg, Pennsylvania. And he hates everyone here. Especially those with LA Lakers gear on for some reason. Anyway, his opponent, who is hoping to send him to the planet of Mars because the moon won't want him, is Vinny Moon, another guy that has been showcased quite a few times on the Indie Showcase list for Wacky World of Wrestling. Vinny Moon is a high-flying wrestler who has recently celebrated his first year in the professional wrestling business. So congratulations are in order from us here in Wacky World of Wrestling for making it this far. And for, well, all the improvements that he's made in ring over the year or so. He's a high-flying wrestler that has technical grappling ability and the ability to showcase emotion in matches. He also can take chops, which J-Rock tried to do a lot of in this match. This match was your classic babyface versus despicable heel match, where the high flyer takes on the grounded wrestler who's trying to keep him grounded and try to use his grappling skills to, well, defeat his opponent. And for J-Rock, unfortunately, the forces of gravity, Vinny Moon's greatest archenemy, have decided to take the day off today. So, yeah, Rock did not have a lot of hope of beating Vinny in this particular contest because the gravity setting had been turned off and Vinny could fly around the ring like an angry hive of hornets. The man who gravity decided to take a range check on, and, well, he also showcased the classic Terrell Kenneth spot of staring down the camera person who's promptly booing him out of the building. Now, J-Rock did do some very fancy grappling in this particular match, including one where he did an abdominal stretch on Vinny Moon, which made him look like he was practicing his guitar skills on Vinny's rib cage. Well, of course, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland, after all. So this was a great match to open up on. I feel bad that I missed the first two matches, but the third match really just got you into the game. All three matches on this card got the crowd going into a frenzy. And there was a really good turnout for this show. Anyway, Vinny did his top rope maneuver, which causes a flash pin free count, so J-Rock ends up losing this match. And J-Rock continues to hate the city of Johnsburg, Pennsylvania, and everyone in it, even when he's not there in person. Really great match to open things up with, properly for me at least, because I once again missed the first two matches. Which then led us to the next two matches on this show, which were really cool matches. Seriously. These matches were really cool because I want to talk to you about Grapplers Anonymous Pro Wrestling. Now, Grapplers Anonymous was founded in 2014 by a variety of individuals, and their goal was to improve the training of professional wrestlers in the Western New York area, specifically in Buffalo. And these next two matches feature wrestlers who have graduated, or at least gotten their live matches from Grapplers Anonymous, who have worked their way up for hard work and are now being able to showcase their skills in front of a live audience. Also, funny note here, they actually had to cancel their Wednesday practice session, which is a live match demonstrations, at the school because they were having to do a show on Wednesday. Yes, this was a weekday show at the county fair, which made it even more fun. A lot of people showed up for the crowd because it was the show time was at 7 p.m., although it did start at 6:50 p.m. in the evening because they wanted to get the show in before it became sunset, and I don't think anybody wanted to work in the dark, despite the fact that there were a few lights and things that made it work. So, starting things off, we have the remix, Kevin Bennett, taking on the debuting Dakota Orion. Now, Dakota Orion is a high flyer. He's a guy who is very much a prototypical 1990s, 2000s high-flying wrestler. Vinny is a wrestler who is more of a traditional 80s high flyer. Dakota is more of a 90s, 2000s guy. And this was his second match. He had a match earlier for one of the regional promotions up in the Buffalo area as his first live match. This was his second live match, from what I have heard. And it was against Kevin Bennett, who ended up getting kicked in the face by a deranged lawn gnome. Yeah, the Buffalo guys had kind of a busy week this week because Daniel Garcia was on 205 Live getting choked out by Drew Gulak. Kevin Bennett was being mauled to death by a deranged lawn gnome at the Ms. Kane funeral segment, the funeral for Team Hell No. And now he gets to face against Dakota Orion, a young protege, high flyer. This is a match that was a teaching match for this traditional wrestling crowd as to what a cruiserweight match is. Now, Southern Tier Wrestling is based in an area that is very traditional heavy when it comes to pro wrestling. Traditional alignments, traditional feuds, and some differences. Some modern things have also started coming into this promotion. We actually had a couple matches where managers faced off against wrestlers, or we actually had an intergender match, that tag team match that ended up doing really well on the Fight Night Volume 1 card. There have been hardcore matches. There have been times when an entire stand display of fruits and vegetables has been destroyed, horrifying all vegans who witnessed that at Gold Rush 2017. And now we have a cruiserweight match. There have been cruiserweight matches in STW shows before, but never this deep down the card. And wow, what an amazing spectacle. Dakota is still learning. This is only his first year into the business. There were a few times where I became legitimately worried for the guy because of how he was doing certain moves, but he'll get better with time. Dakota showcased a ton of fire in this match, and Kevin Bennett, being the veteran, really helped him out in this. This was a crowd that gave you a lot of jitters at times because it was like, wow, okay, this is different. And they started to catch on to it as the match progressed as to this is a cruiserweight match. This is a really cool match. This was an amazing spectacle. Gravity continued to take the day off in this particular match as Kevin and Dakota took turns flying around the ring. Again, Dakota did some really fancy spectacle moves, as did Kevin Bennett, who, as we might recall, actually touched with his feet a circus tent roof with a flip and somehow didn't crash headfirst into the mat. Again, this was a match that had so much spectacle, so much fun. There was a lot of things that just made this match work. Anyway, Kevin hit the remix, which is his finisher, on Dakota Orion to seize the 1-2-3. There were a lot of great things about this match. It was a teaching tool match to showcase cruiserweight wrestling to a crowd that is not particularly familiar with cruiserweight wrestling. There was one minor slip up on the ropes, but again, if that's the only thing that goes wrong in this match, with a guy that has now had his second live match, that's a really good mark in my mind. And he's connecting with this audience. And that's the most important thing you can do. You're starting to connect with an audience and a crowd. And that makes your job so much easier. So you don't have to take so many risks in ring so that you can, well, hey, it's just like it's like learning how to ride a bike. Once you figure out how to learn to ride a bike, it becomes very easy for you to do it. And Dakota Orion, my goodness, that was a really, really fun match. Now, what I like what they did about this card is they balanced out the new thing, a cruiserweight match, now to this area that is basically the equivalent of introducing foreign cuisine. Like chicken wings or something to this audience. So let's have a little bit of traditional home cooking. Maybe some hot dogs. Huh. Say, isn't there a guy of... Oh, God. Oh, lock up the Fairgrounds food, folks. No, seriously, lock it up. I think he might actually eat the locks. Because Megabyte Ronnie is in town. Megabyte Ronnie, for those of you who don't know, is a guy who debuted on STW's Fight Night Volume 1 card. He's another trainee wrestler over at Grapplers Anonymous Pro Wrestling Training. And this guy is a competitive eater. He competed at the 2018 edition of the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest over the 4th of July weekend, which was covered on Wacky World of Wrestling when I talked about it last. And, well, he's back for his third match in pro wrestling. Yes, this is Ronnie's third match in front of a live crowd that isn't in training. And, wow, this was the Bennett Orion match was a spectacle of cruiserweight high-flying moves. The Hartman match was an exercise in fantastic facial expressions and devious amounts of cheating. Because Megabyte Ronnie here was the heel, and he was facing against babyface veteran, the Buffalo Bad Boy, Brian Jennings. And as you might see in the photos here, Ronnie managed to make the crowd hate him. It made him hate him throughout this entirety of the match. My goodness. Where do we begin with this one? Now, Ronnie is the 32nd ranked pro competitive eater, and he once, like I said, competed in the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest this year. He debuted at Fight Night Volume 1 back in June. This is his second appearance for STW. Now, to start things off, Ronnie proceeds to promptly sneak attack Brian Jennings as he's posing on the turnbuckles. He fake congratulates him, and then proceeds to sneak attack him. Now, what I do like what they did to start off with is that they made Ronnie's alignment heel when the match started. He was able to get the applause and the adoration from the crowd because everybody knew that this guy had competed in the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest. It was a source of pride for everybody in Western New York to see this guy compete against some of the top competitive eaters in the world today. I mean, it's just so cool to see. So what happened is that it turns out that sneak attacking your foe isn't a really good idea, as Brian Jennings proceeds to promptly go Steve Tasker on Megabyte Ronnie and proceed to maul him. He charged into him with a stunner, he's clotheslined him, and he proceeded to beat him up in the corner repeatedly. However, Ronnie has ingenuity, wits, and a fearsome uppercut that Brian unfortunately felt. Apparently, AJ Styles isn't the only person to not wear a cup during wrestling matches, as Ronnie proceeded to promptly uppercut him in the gonads, which was incredibly painful. But Ryan tried to recover through the pain, only to get pinned by a fluke pin by Ronnie, in which Ronnie cheated yet again, and proceeded to flamboyantly celebrate throughout the entirety of the ring, while the longest amount of sustained booing that I have ever heard at one of these shows proceeded to happen as everybody got it. a chance to boo this guy. As Ronnie embraced that heel. Ronnie Hartman came out of his shell. Ronnie came out of his shell in this particular match. It made everything work. Megabyte Ronnie is such a great character because he's so self-absorbed. The adoration of the crowd without realizing that you cheated. You cheated. You uppercutted a guy in the gonads. The ref didn't see it. And you won. And it made this match an amazing spectacle. It's a sensational spectacle when you can get a crowd into a frothing rage over a guy cheating in his third match. It's also his first victory in Southern Tier Wrestling as Ronnie starts to build himself up the card. My goodness, these two, as well as the rest of the performers that perform in Southern Tier Wrestling, are definitely folks that you want to watch. A lot of them are now in a lot of the bigger independent wrestling promotions. Well, they're here in Western New York, and it's working. Whatever they're doing, regards to training, regards to show promotion, regards to the idea of we have something here, let's build on it. And they proceed to do that. Every show, the confidence seems to go a little bit more. Oh my goodness, we actually got a crowd. We've got a crowd to perform in front of. Because if you've witnessed or watched any of the Western New York Indies for the last 15 to 25 years, you'll have seen that these guys and gals have been working in front of very small crowds for years. Toiling away, hoping for that moment where things break through and you start to get more and more of a crowd. And, well, this was it. And after I rested a little bit, I posted the rest of the photos, which begins with match number 6. So, we had a promo segment. Remember the Rico Cruz promo segment I said at the start of the show that I missed? Well, I got to see acting STW Commissioner Rico Cruz do a promo segment on one of the most hateable wrestlers in STW. You see, Super Beast committed the grave atrocity of ringing the Timekeeper's belt at STW Fight Night Volume 1, which cost James Santel an opportunity to defeat the Don Rob Sweet for the STW Heavyweight Championship. You know where I'm going with this, right? Super Beast cuts an incredibly passionate promo about how he hates everybody here in this town, which, unlike J-Rock, he actually gets the name right. Kudos to you. And says it's Dunkirk, which I actually yelled at him as he was coming out to the ring, and thanked him for that. Even though he is a walking furnace of hatred. And he says he doesn't have an opponent. And he brags that he can defeat them in under 5 seconds. Rico justifiably points out to him that no, you don't get to yell at the crowd. No, you don't get to insult them. And yes, we have an opponent for you. Rico cuts an incredibly good, passionate babyface promo, which sets up this match and helps Santel out, because he's the opponent for this match, face off against Super Beast. Yep, Super Beast versus Santel. And this turned out to be a pretty nifty match. Because Cruz proceeds to insult Super Beast by calling him Kool-Aid Man. Cruz? Are you trying to get Santel crushed to death by Super Beast and his finely tuned physique? Because I think that's what you're going with here. As Santel unfortunately finds out as Super Beast is angry. And he proceeds to use that finely tuned physique to try to crush him like a bug. As Santel runs in with babyface fire and proceeds to try and hit every single shot he can at Super Beast. But it's the equivalent of hitting a brick wall with your fist at 15 miles per hour. It really hurts. Santel tries every single thing he can to try and defeat Super Beast in this situation. He does running punches. He tries to clothesline him, which he ends up bouncing. Super Beast promptly sits on the guy, grabs a microphone, and says, "Is this your hero?" To which we reply, "Yes, yes, he is our hero." The match was heavily psychologically driven because of the limitations of both performers. Santel has been out of wrestling for a couple of years. He's trying to get back into shape, and Super Beast has knee issues. But the great thing about having limitations is you know exactly what to do to counteract those limitations. And these two did that in this particular match. Every match had a different flow and a different kind of story being told in that ring. This was the match of the determined babyface wanting to get revenge against the diabolical heel manager of the current STW heavyweight champion. Oh, and if you thought that Super Beast was done with his evil, oh, we still got a heavyweight championship match to cover, which will be coming up later on in the show. He tries to crush Santel's back by sitting on him. And then, of course, Santel fires back with chops. Even the referee is scared of Super Beast's power as he proceeds to yell at him. His voice actually being so loud that the crowd can actually hear him as he's screaming. However, overconfidence and a lack of backup, seriously, where was Rob Sweet and the Landlord? Yes, he's here too on this card. From his stable, dooms Super Beast mid-taunt as he's on the second rope, and he falls to a counter from Santel, which caused the first of several funks from the arena at night, which people may have assumed was that the Demolition Derby cars were getting a pre-match testing, because the day after this show ended, the Demolition Derby cars came out. So, Santel gets a counter victory against Super Beast. But we all know that the Super Beast never forgets, and revenge, as we have seen on past editions of Wacky World of Wrestling, is a game that Super Beast is very well versed in, and he really likes. And he's got a crew or a family to help him along the way. So, once again, really solid match. Once again, got the crowd going into a frothing hatred, and they hated the bejesus out of Super Beast. And they really like Santel. But nothing could compare to what could be basically said as the greatest entrance ever. I typically don't have much opinion about pro wrestling entrances. Some of them are a total insane spectacle. Unless, of course, they are an insane spectacle, in which case I'd like to talk about them. Well, this one was that insane spectacle. One of the patron saints, which I've been told was Mikey Everynight, thought of an idea of how to do an in-ring entrance. Well, his idea was, why don't we use a golf cart? Yes, the patron saints of professional wrestling, those diabolical varsity 1950s varsity club stable of diabolical evil wrestlers, come driving to the ring in a golf cart. Now, for those of you who may not be aware about this area, the sign of a golf cart in any rural area like Dunkirk, or 90% of Chautauqua County for that matter, is going to get you instantly booed, is going to be instantly booed and heckled by the locals. Because a golf cart is the universal sign of a rich yuppie. And there are a lot of rich yuppies over at the Chautauqua Institution. And people in the area don't really like them. Because the Chautauqua Institution, for those of you who may not be aware, is a vacation hotspot for people in the summer to go boating around Chautauqua Lake. And there's a lot of rich people there. And in this current climate of the economics and economy and how things are going in the country, there's a lot of bitterness on both sides of the aisle. So the patron saints come marching in, or driving in this case, on a golf cart. Steve Gage was waving around a patron saint's flag. Yes, they have their own flag now. How extra and how amazing is this? As we get our first match. On the next match, which is match number 7, on the itinerary today is Terrell Kenneth versus Vince Valor. These two have their very first match against one another in a one-on-one situation. Terrell Kenneth proceeds to cut a promo on the crowd and is jeered at by children. Brandon also gets the same fate, as they talk about how Terrell is going to destroy everything, in this case Vince Valor, and probably one of the carnival rides just to make the children unhappy, because that's Brandon Thurston's job. Brandon Thurston wants to destroy happiness. It's nice that people have goals in this day and age. So, yeah, one more thing I should probably mention before we get on with this match. Well, I decided to disguise myself as the enemy at this show. By that, I mean, I decided to wear my Patron Saints of Professional Wrestling t-shirt that I bought with legal means at the last show. And, well, people noticed. Yes, people were looking out for the ring and looking and seeing a guy with a camera, long hair, and a hat, and a legally procured somebody in a legally procured Patron Saints t-shirt is booing them. It kind of made Vince freak out a little bit because he looked over and he sees Guy in a Patron Saint shirt cheering him. I'm disguising myself as the enemy, Vince. Don't worry. I'm still booing the bejesus out of them, even if they want to maul me and, pack me into a can of sardines. However, the patron saints coming all together to try and incite the crowd to riot, which actually led to another really cool moment. And two things I should mention, two really great, which really showcase the level of security and safety that you can go to at one of these shows. The first thing was that there was an EMT medical emergency incident in the stands involving an elderly person who got dehydrated during the show, and they carefully and calmly took her to the medical facility during the Kevin Bennett Dakota Orion match, which also thumbs up to those two. They actually also checked on her as they were doing their match. They did a spot where Kevin was holding Dakota on a grapple hold and was looking over to see if they were all right. Really, really good and compassionate thing that those two did. The second time was somebody in the crowd decided to get rowdy and try to fight the patron saints, Mikey Everynight and Steve Gage, only to be promptly shoulder tackled by security. And when he went down the steps, guess who was there to greet him? Rico Cruz, who proceeded to showcase his pro wrestling skills by grabbing him in a reverse arm lock. Grabbing him like people who do crisis interventions grab crazy people, grabbed him back, did a legit shoot hold on his arms, and basically dragged him back up to the stands where where the person's grandmother began to yell at him as they in security went back and knocked things over. My mother loved it because she's a former crisis interventionist. The person who would drag people to rubber rooms. And she did this back in the 1980s, where it was very dangerous to do that sort of thing. Regardless of that insane spectacle, that was a really great showcase of security, safety, and just the crowd's willingness not to put up with nonsense. Okay, we're here to have a good time. We're not here to do anything insane. We have children, we have families at this show, and it really showcased a nice ability to protect people during a wrestling show, which is one of those things that I have been advocating for on recent editions of Wacky World of Wrestling, and have been advocating for since I basically started this whole thing. Regardless, the ref has seen enough and decides that he's going to ban the patron saints from ringside. And then a game of Rock'em Sock'em Robots that leads us to being spilled into the crowd begins. And I say Rock'em Sock'em Robots because Terrell is wearing a blue Patron Saint shirt and Vince is wearing an incredible Vince Valor red shirt. By the way, both t-shirts I currently own both of them. Own both of those. Yes, I got a Brandon Thurston shirt at the last show, and I got another one of Vince's shirts at this show. So that was really cool. And yes, they decided to have a brawl in the stands once the security situation had been taken care of. It was over by the production truck, so that was so when Mikey and Steve were escorted out along with Brandon, then Terrell and Vince proceeded to brawl in the middle section of the crowd. You might note, this is where I was sitting. Yes, they brawl right in front of my section. The section that I was sitting in. I got some great close-up photos of this brawl between Terrell Kiddiff and Vince Valor. As the brawl heads in my direction, internal screaming. I'm like, oh my god, guys, you're coming up here. You're coming up here to this section of the audience. Oh my goodness. However, there is a storyline purpose for this. Terrell Kenneth proceeds to plant Vince Valor on the floor of the grandstands and use the railing to his advantage. The large funk sound as Vince Valor hits the metal floor. He was okay, at least a little bit. It does hurt when your back smacks against the a steel floorboards that is a section of bleacher seats with a metal floor. But oh my goodness, that was like just such an impressive bump. And then you have Terrell using his environment to his advantage. There is a link of chain over by the one section of the arena on the right side of the ring, which as Vince is trying to cross this by putting his feet around, Terrell proceeds to sneak attack him and promptly try to maul him again. And then he uses the side of the ring for an apron bump. Thankfully, this one was not your typical apron bump like an NXT one, but the much safer variant. For those of you who might be worried about Vince's health in this match. No, he was okay. For the most part. As okay as somebody getting slammed onto the floor of a of a seating section can be, at least. Now I'm going to talk about the two individuals here. Terrell Kenneth is a ginormous monster who brings a Shakespearean flair to each and every one of his carnage-fueled, destroy-everything matches. And people are starting to notice. Terrell is actually getting booked out of state now. He was in Pennsylvania earlier this weekend, and he's also going to be up in Canada for Alpha One Wrestling relatively soon. I'm really glad that people are beginning to notice Terrell's incredible skill. Kenneth is a wrestler who will bring the best out of your small wrestlers, who will bring the best out of your medium-sized wrestlers, and will bring the best out of your super heavyweights or heavyweight wrestlers. This is a guy who will establish your babyface side of the roster if you give him the opportunity to do so. His intelligence and intellect when it comes to psychological match planning is second to none. His mentor, of course, his mentorship of, Brandon and Mikey teaching him everything that they know alongside the study of Pepper Parks. Those are guys alongside Kaiju Chris Retz who run Grapplers Anonymous on the training side of things. And then we have Vince Valor. Vince Valor is a former football player who's trying his hand at pro wrestling. He's been around the scene for a few years, and Vince improves on every single show that he's on. He has technical skill. He had an amazing match at Fight Night Volume 1 against Brandon Thurston, which was a technical exercise that was an amazing, wonderful spectacle of old school, traditional technical wrestling with a modern spin on it. As these two, fought in a church basement in an basically had an underground fight night vibe to it, which is why it was called Fight Night Volume 1. And now Kenneth and Valor, who were the guys who lost both of their matches, Kenneth to Mike Skyros and Vince to Brandon Thurston, well, they proceed to have a traditional fairgrounds brawl against one another in the ring, which was safely done and was a wonderful spectacle. When I go to a fairground show, I expect that it's going to be a bit of an insane spectacle. Not as far as like spots or moves, but things like, for instance, a mattress being used as a tag partner in a match, or somebody smashing somebody through a table full of fruits and vegetables. I expect that kind of insanity and wackiness at these kind of indie shows, and Southern Tier Wrestling constantly does that. It's a show that is both modern and old school to an extent, and it combines the best of both worlds. And this match was an example of that. You had interference, you had insanity, you had bumps, you had Terrell Kenneth basically trying to destroy everything. You had Vince doing moves that most people were shocked to see that he could do. He did a flying crossbody from the second rope on this show. He then also decided to do a first rope power bomb on Terrell, which also led to things going boom in the night. Now, Terrell seemed to be in control of the situation. His monstrous thespian ways controlling the match. And then Vince proceeds to promptly counter him and hit his finisher on Terrell. Again, a notable thing. Counters being used in a match to showcase that, oh, hey, the heels are being diabolical. Wow, that's like... and then the baby faces being intelligent enough to counteract those heel tendencies. This was a hard-hitting, really, really fun spectacle that was sensational. It was sensational to watch this live. It was wonderful to see these two in their element, brawling, fighting, and doing professional wrestling at a county fair with a sizable crowd, which made everything pop, everything react. It felt alive. It felt wonderful to see this. And considering that I had not exactly had the easiest week, to watch a professional wrestling show like this was a much needed break for me, and it was a much needed break for everybody else that was here. That families could showcase to their children what they liked as a kid. Now, I've been on record in saying, and I've said this many times in the past, I wasn't introduced to professional wrestling as a child. I didn't get into pro wrestling until I was 18 years old and started to study it, to research it, and I started becoming a fan of it because I was like, oh, this is just like theater. And my mother, being a former community theater person, this is something that I am used to. This is art, theater, a spectacle that is also a sport. Because, let's face it, theater people are not smacking each other over the heads with sandbags because they lost the lead role on an acting part, okay? Well, not always. The really insane ones do, but this was a wonderful spectacle of theater, and we're not done yet, because match 8 began after this one ended. Once again, Brandon Thurston, the diabolical evil leader of the patron saints of professional wrestling, runs into the ring to promptly beat Vince Valor up. And then Mike Skyros, his scheduled opponent, has had enough and runs into the ring to keep Brandon out. He then grabs a microphone and cuts a passionate promo and says, Brandon, you want to face me, you can fight me right now. And they proceed to do so. Yes, the Moonlight Son, Mike Skyros. Wow. Mike Skyros is a hybrid wrestler. He's a hybrid between a heavyweight wrestler with the finesse and high flying of a cruiserweight wrestler. This is a guy who can deadlift Terrell Kenneth, who is not small by any stretch of the imagination. He legitimately deadlifted a 350-pound guy in the ring at the Fight Night show last time. Picking up Brandon is like the equivalent of picking up a light feather after that. So, Brandon Thurston uses his technical wrestling skills to try and ground Skyros into making a mistake so that he can capitalize on him. Now, when I've talked about Brandon Thurston before on the show, I've talked about the dual personalities that this particular person has. You have Brandon Thurston, the professional writer. You have Brandon Thurston, who also works in the wrestling media field, doing economic related podcasts, showcasing numbers, statistics, flow charts, graphs. Things that would make the average human go completely insane, like 2001 A Space Odyssey. A person who will listen on the public investor calls for WWE. Who can actually listen to financial stuff and not go completely mad like most people do. Brandon is a part of WrestleNomics Radio, a podcast that he, along with Chris Harrington, aka Mookie Aganya, that are doing on Audio Boom and are also a part of the Voices of Wrestling podcasting community. Now, they have also set up a Patreon for their premium edition shows, which is a well worthwhile investment. It is only $5 a month. Now, I should also disclaimer here that they didn't ask me, they don't ask me to promote WrestleNomics Radio, but I do it anyway because they are doing a phenomenal job of teaching economics, not just to pro wrestling fans, but to wrestlers as well. Teaching economics to people who may not necessarily understand the ins and outs of economics, financial markets, and how a regional market can be affected by things such as job loss or new people coming into the city who may not necessarily not know about what sort of events happen in these towns and cities. WrestleNomics Radio is doing a very important thing that I feel is something that is vital to the future of professional wrestling. Teaching people economics and teaching it in ways that they can understand. Bringing economics to the mainstream wrestling fandom, not just something that just independents or just a small group of people know, but that everybody understands in a way that is teachable and a way that showcases just how to make things better in pro wrestling is by explaining the economic nature of it. The nature of the beast. When you study the nature of the beast and when you know about the nature of the beast, you're better prepared to counteract the problems and the vices that come in the pro wrestling industry. And WrestleNomics Radio, hosted by Chris Harrington and Brandon Howard Thurston, is an example of such podcast. I've listened to their show for almost a year now, and it has been a really, really fun show to listen in on. In fact, if you watch a certain episode called The Amazing Technicolor Populations Edition, I believe it's called, fast forward to the very end. You might hear a certain someone on that broadcast that you might be somewhat familiar with. Just saying, might want to do that. It's one of those moments in 2017 that even though I had a bit of a bad year that year with a lot of personal stuff that was happening around me, that was a really special moment for me. And like my mother was excited, my dad was excited, and I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, my voice was on an episode of WrestleNomics Radio. It was a really special, cool moment. And so because of the fact that this I'm getting choked up actually here. I can see what Brandon is doing. He's trying to make things better. A lot of people in the area are trying to make things better. They're tired of the slog, the consistent struggle to try and make something work in this area. Because it's not just wrestling, it's everywhere in Western New York. People are actually breaking out of the shells of apathy and trying to do things to make things better. And wrestling is one of those things. Wrestling used to be a social club, like 50, 100 people, all part of the same social group. It wasn't run as a business, it was run as a social club. Now, you're bringing in people who haven't gone to these shows before. You're bringing in people who want to see professional wrestling, who want to rekindle that childhood love of pro wrestling and experience and showcase it to their kids. The most passionate fans in STW have been the child fans. From the little girls who look up to Kate Kearney dismembering Ereza Ellswood during an intergender tag match to all of the kids who watch these shows and are so amazed by the spectacle of it all. Getting a break from, I would call it, I guess, the misery of this area. Because people generally are kind of miserable around here. But then you get the wrestling shows, and it's a fun, family-friendly spectacle that really helps things. And when you have a regional promotion and a bunch of regional wrestlers who care and they want to give effort and they want to showcase good wrestling to a crowd and teach a crowd, this is good wrestling. These are professionally trained wrestlers competing in a squared circle against one another. Because Brandon Thurston's also a trainer. He's one of the guys that trains people over at Grapplers Anonymous. This is a guy doing 4 things at once, and that's all the more impressive. He's a writer, he's a podcaster, he's a wrestler, and he's a trainer. And the most important thing about training is also the factor of you're bringing people into the wrestling business who are professionally trained. I can't express how important that is. Professionally trained wrestlers. Yes, there are going to be botches. Yes, there are still going to be things that happen in that regard. But when you reduce that risk of somebody getting seriously injured in ring from a very dangerous profession where something could always go wrong, it's a blessing. It's a thing that is wonderful to see. And then we have, of course, Brandon Thurston, the wrestler, who is like the exact opposite of his personality in the media field and in podcasting and whatnot. Brandon Thurston, the wrestler, is one of the most diabolical heels I've ever seen. This is a man that will cause children to curse him out. This is a man who will cause fans to boo and scream his name. Because Brandon Thurston is that 1950s varsity wrestler that is good at everything that everybody hates because he cheats. And he's facing against the beloved babyface in Mike Skyros once again. Something I should point out about Southern Tier Wrestling once again, for those who don't know. Vince Valor and Mike Skyros, those guys are normally heels in other territories. In Southern Tier, they're babyfaces. And it's lovely to see because it gives you a nice break from being heel 24/7 or babyface 24/7. You actually can do something different down here when you're in a different part of the territory because the old school territory rules do apply. Like, hey, you're a heel in one city, but you're a face in another city. And in this area, Vince Valor and Mike Skyros are babyfaces. And it's really cool to see. Brandon Thurston is an amazing technical wrestler. The match he had at Fight Night Volume 1 is in my top 5. Him versus Vince Valor. This match was yet another great spectacle of technical wrestling mixed in with Skyros doing his patented hybrid offense. Heck, Thurston actually took a flying bump in this match. Where gravity, again, it didn't take the day off. And there was a lot of really nice grappling. Skyros actually counteracts some of Brandon's grappling by doing his own grappling. He even did I think it was either a Boston Crab or Texas Cloverleaf, which was a really cool visual to see. Of course, however, when you are the leader of a stable, as Brandon Thurston is, with his merry band of diabolical patron saints of professional wrestling, he calls his backup back into the ring, since obviously the ban from ringside thing just applied to the Kenneth match, as the patron saints come back. However, Nick Merrick and Vince Valor come in with chairs and proceed to drive the patron saints away from the ring. leading to Skyros picking up the victory after he counteracts Thurston. This was a lovely spectacle match, which once again showcased the yet another different style. Technical wrestler versus hybrid wrestler. It really helped out Skyros in this particular case get more and more momentum as he's being pushed into the upper half of the card. And Thurston is still just as diabolical ever. You know, Brandon Thurston, the wrestler, total psycho. He's the leader of the patron saints for a reason. This is a guy who, despite his slightly small stature, is easily one of the most menacing heels on the patron saint side because of just the many ways he can use his technical wrestling skills to rip out your arm. And it was so cool. It's so cool to see Brandon in his element. And to see a hot crowd really enjoy technical wrestling mixed with power wrestling. And these two matches back to back really gave the crowd something very different than what they're used to. Because these are two consecutive matches done by several different people, which made it very different than what you usually saw on an STW card. Once again, differences. And it really made this show, the middle half of the show, really stand out as something very, very solid. There we go. Got myself a little bit of a drink there. Because we now have our next match. The Godfather theme plays in the background as our diabolical champion, the Don, Rob Sweet, with his family of Super Beast and Landlord. Yes, you may recall Landlord from the Gold Rush 2018 review. How he assisted in helping the Don gain championship gold in Southern Tier Wrestling. They get naturally a warm reception of boos from this crowd. Hang on a second. The Godfather music stopped playing. And someone destroyed the Technicolor machine. Only one person could have done that. No, it's not Terrell. He's recovering from being destroyed by Vince Fowler. Well, there's a sense of irony there. At least they left an IOU this time for one Technicolor machine after this match. I wonder who it is. Did someone say adventure? 1920s newsreel music plays. That's right, folks. Returning for a championship belt against this devious miscreant is, of course, the adventurer himself, returning from Southern Tier Wrestling after going on a globe-trotting journey of adventurer. Is the adventurer Stone Rockwell, formerly known as Asylum. He has come to claim gold in them hills. And that gold that he wants in those hills is the Southern Tier Wrestling Heavyweight Championship. However, before this match starts, for safety reasons, please note that only a professional adventurer like Stone Rockwell here may remove the allegedly cursed hat of adventure from its turnbuckle after he proceeds to cut a promo on what he called a Super Mario guy. I'm not really sure that a professional adventurer would know what Super Mario is, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. As we continue on this newsreel, Stone Rockwell, our grand adventurer, faces off against the Don, Rob Sweet, for the Southern Tier Wrestling Heavyweight Championship of Chautauqua County. I'm not sure if it's of the world yet, because I'm not sure if it's a world title or not. But regardless, our noble adventurer gives our devious miscreant of a champion the opportunity to prove himself in a test of strength by having him engage in a headlock. To prove himself in this test of skills and strength, he proceeds to promptly fail the first 2 times and then tries again on the 3rd time and tries to cheat. However, our noble adventurer has seen many a contest at these county fairs, and is well versed in how to counteract this devious miscreant of a champion. The ability to counteract every time that he tries to do things. He decides to do a vertical suplex on the Don Rob Sweet, which gives him visions of deja vu, as this is what happened to him at the Gold Rush 2018 show against our former champion, Big Time Bill Collier. A horrible case of deja vu now awaits Sweet every time he dreams tonight. He repeatedly backfires in his means of attempting to cheat against Stone Rockwell, our heroic adventurer. Unfortunately, he also gets a rather nasty FUD on the ring mat from a vertical suplex. However, the champ, our devious miscreant of a champ, has some help. Like I said beforehand, Super Beast, the devastating furnace of hatred, and Landlord, who is a landlord, who is naturally hated, because he's basically demanding everybody pay their rent. Super Beast proceeds to attempt to interfere in the adventurer's plan to take them gold out of them hills. Unfortunately, he forgets that there's another person involved, the landlord, and Rob Sweet. The match proceeds, much like those trips to the molten fire pits of Vesuvius. Our heroic adventurer is fighting against the odds here, but then proceeds to counteract using a backbreaker on the champ. Ooh, that is gonna leave a mark in the morning. Flying like Icarus and doing a vertical leap off the second rope, the adventurer, Stone Rockwell, is proceeding to turn the tide in this gloriously hammy match of ham-on-ham combat, until that diabolical, devious landlord throws a mysterious foreign object into the ring that the champ proceeds to pick up, put around his wrist, and proceeds to promptly punch Stone Rockwell in the face, and proceeds to pin him for the 1-2-3 because the referee did not see that Rob Sweet, the Don, had the foreign object in his trunks. So Rockwell, unfortunately, our heroic adventurer, loses this match, though I suspect he may be getting some form of revenge against these devious miscreants. So as we end our tale of adventure for now, our heroic adventurer might have lost this bout by underhanded means, but by no means does this spell the end of him or his quest to gain them gold in them hills, as he gains the applause of a very, very responsive crowd to his latest adventure. As he dusts off his hat and picks up his whip, he goes off in search of some kind of Mayan temple, or an Antarctic trip to the South Pole, or some kind of trip to the desert, regardless of where our noble adventurer goes. This match was an excellent execution of pure ham, carnival madness, and fairground follies. Tune in next time on the same channel for our next adventure here, as we don't know whether or not our adventurer will be returning to STW in the future. But until then, the adventures of the adventurer Stone Rockwell roll on. In a promotion near you. Newsreel ends. Okay, folks. I love doing that artistic kind of wacky stuff on this show, and that it was no exception in that role. Stone Rockwell versus Rob Sweet was a solid, competently put together match between two people who absolutely know what the heck they're doing in front of this crowd. Rob Sweet gets into a great fifth gear when he starts going for underhanded, devious tactics. Landlord and Super Beast add so much to this act as a part of the family. Landlord, for the record, proceeded to throw one of the best foreign object tosses I have ever seen anybody pull off in ring before. He just casually grabs the foreign object, Make sure that the referee doesn't see it because he doesn't want to make the ref look dumb. Throws the foreign object in perfect position to Sweet. Sweet picks it up, promptly puts it around his wrist. Rockwell promptly gets punched, and the sequence goes on like the ref never even saw the foreign object. That's how you can tell that there's some good pro wrestling going on in them hills. Rockwell was a full-on, full-bore ham in this match. His promo ability is second to none, building up the champion and also building himself up as a reputable challenger to face off, given the fact that he was Southern Tier Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, who lost the belt to Bill Collier. So, Rockwell, trying to recapture the glorious belt, no doubt he and, of course, his lifelong rival, big-time Bill Collier, will likely be tangling for this heavyweight championship of gold in the near future, because Collier still has to cash in his rematch clause on Rob Sweet. And Rob is going to be in for a heck of a lot of pain if those two get in the ring with him. Yeah, that's a spectacle I'm looking forward to. Rob Sweet has done incredibly well in Southern Tier Wrestling. He is a journeyman from Rochester. He's wrestled all over the place in Western New York and in Eastern New York and in Northern New York. He's wrestled everywhere in New York. This is a guy who is a well-traveled journeyman who is making the most of this crowd absolutely hating him. He got chased out of the ring when he won the title at Gold Rush by angry children. And proceeded to do a 100-meter sprint out of the ring. You know you've achieved heat when you have children wishing for your blood. And this was yet another example of that. Rockwell was a wonderful babyface who brought a grand sense of majesty and adventure to this particular match. He was the adventurer, Stone Rockwell, who, besides his bravery of facing against the diabolical odds and a possible Steven Spielberg lawsuit, really showcased that wonderful ham and acting ability that one has when they can just have fun at what they're doing. Rockwell's been around for a very long time as Asylum. He debuted in, 2001, 2002? And he always puts on really character-driven, wonderful story-based matches that complement his athletic ability with his ability to tell a story as a character. He can pull off all of the power moves in the world, but you can connect with an audience by telling a story. So you don't have to waste all those power moves and fill up your bump card in 3 years or less. This was a wonderful, wonderful spectacle of a match. And for those of you who might have seen the photos, I made sure to do these photos in black and white to give it the vibe of a 1920s newsreel program. Because when I was being homeschooled, we used to watch a lot of films from the 1920s and 1930s that were newsreel films about the war, the Great Depression, cinema films. I know a lot about old school cinema, from the 1920s to the 1970s. Heck, even as I was approaching the merch table to procure some grand adventurer gear, I also recommended that Rockwell watch some Roy Harryhausen films from the 1950s to 1970s, which are classic adventure films with some of the most practical special effects that you'll ever see. So, this was a great, great spectacle of a heavyweight championship match before the insanity and the spectacle of the main event. With the sun starting to go down and the lights being turned on, our main event of the evening was another continuation feud, as it were. Who here remembers Ryan Cassidy and his feud with the elderly? Yes, it's back. Gold Rush 2018 saw him face against Tony Atlas. This time, he's decided to tango with Bushwhacker Luke. Yes, 71-year-old bushwhacker Luke and his partner for the day, Jet Rebel, facing against Cloudy and Ryan Cassidy in our main event. A biblical amount of insanity. This was a competently put together, wonderful spectacle of a main event. Because, folks, Bushwhacker Luke still got it at 71. He still got it. He was able to get this crowd into a frenzy within 5 seconds. And then you have the heels. Cloudy is really hateable. He really didn't like the old man. He hates everybody here. He can join the list of people who really don't like this crowd. And he wants to put the old man in the ground. And Jet Rebel in the ground, too. And then you have Ryan Cassidy and his continuing feud with the elderly, which is a wonderful, wonderful mini feud to continue off of from. Because Ryan Cassidy is so wonderfully hateable. He's a small wrestler, so he's it's very good for him to bump against the older wrestlers. And yes, Bushwhacker Luke did take a bump in this match. Yes. Yes, the 71-year-old man from down under took a bump in this match. So they proclaimed that they were the best team here, and they were going to put Luke in the ground. Good luck with that. Again, you're facing against the guy from the Outback and Jet Rebel, who's one half of the Southern Tier Wrestling Tag Team Champions. You made a note, yes, Anthony Gaines was not on this card. Well, yeah, after you got catapulted, launched out of the ring by Ace Romero, yeah, you wouldn't be on a card actually taking a well-deserved rest. Yeah, seriously, go see the Romero Gaines match from ESW if you haven't already. Once again, another promotion that's doing a lot of very different things than what you normally see. You've got a combination of both regional talent and great fly-in independent wrestlers coming into onto their shows, and they're filling up that firehouse every single time. Now, I personally have not gone to an ESW show yet because it's a bit far out of my range. It's about 60 plus miles to go to a pro wrestling show, and instead it's, but I can actually watch it from the comfort of my own home because ESW has a pivot share service now. And they're doing more stuff with Twitch. And they're posting stuff on YouTube. If you haven't seen what this promotion is like, ESW is up in Buffalo, New York. They're one of several regional promotions up in that area. And they are posting their matches onto YouTube. Go see all of the matches on those cards, along with Romero and Gaines, because you'll get a really nice picture as to what this promotion is all about. It's basically a hybrid promotion where it's traditional, but it also has a lot of modern elements in it. A little bit more of a smart crowd than usual, but again, there's also a family crowd that's there as well, so it helps balance things out. Anyway, this main event, my goodness, this was madness. And it was madness in a great way. Cloudy and Cassidy took turns in being so wonderfully diabolical throughout this entirety of the match. And they did it by basically making Jet Rebel their punching bag. Rebel is a guy who does well in situations where he's the punching bag for the babyface hot tag. But Rebel also showcased a lot of really good fire throughout this match. An ability for him to stand out on his own with Gaines taking an injury break after going for a really grueling match against the fellow cruiserweight Ace Romero. And you have him and you have Bushwhacker Luke, who was able to bring a lot of fire into this match. The crowd was unglued. They were cheering, they were booing, they were laughing at the comedy spots. Which, yes, Bushwhacker Luke did his trademark traditional comedy spot. And everybody was laughing so hard in that match. Cloudy and Cassidy did some really good tandem tag team offense, and Cloudy is incredibly despicably hateful. He's the kind of guy that we would love to boo because he has the look of a hipster about him. And it just works. The two youthful young wrestlers trying to put the old man and the kid in the hospital. That's a great way to generate heat. Well, alongside with manager Jonathan Ashe bringing his clipboard of doom. No, this time they did not have to put the clipboard into a wood chipper for portraying Canada for the American Tony Atlas. And it was so cool for me to showcase this match in photo form to Rev, one of my friends, Reverend Claire Elizabeth, and that is the kind of match that she really likes. It's a match that really is a wacky, insane spectacle that a lot of my friends love to see the photos that I post up, and I'm glad that you get to experience and that you folks get to experience them as well, whichever people are watching this broadcast. And that was the final match, and of course the baby faces won because of course they're going to. Okay. And with Jet Rebel pinning Cassidy, yes, Jet Rebel pinned Ryan Cassidy in this match to a standing ovation and a cheer from the crowd. And after the show was over, I went down to the merchandise stand. I picked up a Vince Valor shirt, thanked him for his match. I picked up a Stone Rockwell t-shirt, which is incredibly comfortable. It's ring spun cotton. And once again, people who take the time to invest in their merchandise by making sure that it's cotton instead of polyester are people that I really like buying merchandise from. I mean, as long as you can pass a character test, which is easy to do, you know, relatively easy to do. I do a character test for every person I buy merch from. And there we go. I now have a Vince Valor t-shirt. I now have a Stone Rockwell t-shirt. I'll have photos upcoming in the coming days, I believe. And and also my mom, who was with me on the show, who really loves coming with me on these shows because it's a really nice thing that we get to do as a family together. These kind of shows, going to wrestling shows is something that we do as a family. And they're really fun events to go to because they're family friendly, really fun events that I've talked about this before, but I suffer from a bit of crowd anxiety issues when I go to most events. The only place I've never really had that issue with is wrestling. I know where to go, where to get some space from from people, from crowds, and at the same time, I also can freak the heck out of crowds because I can do the traditional thing of I cheer the faces and I boo the heels. And when you become a conductor of sorts and to showcase to an audience, it's okay to boo, it's okay to cheer, get invested in the show. And it can really liven up an audience. Because I've watched a lot of, I've seen where a lot of these wrestlers have come from. And for all the work that they put in, their years and years of work, in some cases, working in front of 50 to 100 people on cards. Yeah, that gets to you to a while. It's like when I talk to some of these wrestlers, it's the equivalent of talking to a war veteran, a person who's seen things, who's seen wars, who's seen battlefields, who's seen tragedy. And to see these guys just be so surprised. We have crowds now. We're getting reactions. We're getting proper reactions. That's the wonderful thing about running a place actually like a professional business. Because these are professional business people. It's just that the things have been worked by the terminologies that have been used by wrestling for decades that finding a new path is often difficult. But when you have people there who are willing to cut the vines and the trees away from the path and showcase, yes, you can do this. Positiveness. I have said before, I am a positive, pessimist, pragmatic individual. And these are the shows where the positive side really comes out. Because I can say safely, you're doing good. You've got your own ring now. You're investing. You're doing things. You're doing the little things right. You have a nice, positive environment for your shows. Professional wrestling promotions are hubs for wrestlers who are independent wrestlers, who are technically classified as independent contractors, to trade in their craft, which is professional wrestling. Now, for me, this is also kind of cool in my own way because while I'm not a professional wrestler, and I certainly would never claim to be, I am and have been a person who has been an independent business owner since I was 12 years old. I helped my mother raise butterflies. I helped my mother with soap projects. I helped my mother with a variety of fiber arts and knitting projects that we would sell. We'd sell hats at Christmas time. We'd sell butterflies to weddings. Never again. I have a copy of Lee Iacocca's first autobiography sitting here right here on my desk. I've got a first edition copy of the Tightwad Gazette sitting in the upstairs game room. I've got a second edition and a third edition lying around somewhere of the next two books. I know how to budget, I know how to manage things, and I know how to make a business work. And I love it when I can help people in that regard and say to them, this isn't this business. This is a business. This is a regional business that is helping the community, and the community is helping it. Because people are showing up to shows. They didn't used to a few years ago. Because it's no longer a social club. It's no longer a clique. People want to come to shows. They want to come to a place that is a nice, cheap form of entertainment. Because, let's be honest here, cost of other professional entertainment venues has skyrocketed in the last 5 to 10 years. It's very expensive to go to a big WWE show. It's very expensive to go to a demolition derby because car prices have gone up. It's very expensive to go to other events because of the price point. A professional wrestling show, if you want to go front row, is $20 in this area, $25 in other areas, and general admission in this area is $10. Admittedly, because it was the fair, it was $12, but still, $12, 10 matches. Yes, 10 matches. You got 10 matches on this card. 10 very different matches from each other. Traditional wrestling matches, cruiserweight matches, brawling matches in the crowd, technical wrestling showcases, hybrid wrestling matches, styles clashes, storylines being developed, storylines continuing from show to show, main events that are well worth the price of admission, adventurers, and a main event that was a spectacle of insanity, madness, and wonderful working. Yes, there is nothing like a regional indie wrestling promotion that you can support. Like I said, do your homework, cross your I's, dot your T's. Actually, dot your I's, cross your T's. Do your homework of your regional wrestling promotion before you begin to contribute to it. Study the performers, study the people that are running the show. Make sure you know what exactly is going on with this promotion. Because we've had, of course, the year of the problematics, which are the wrestlers or promoters that do completely insane things. There have been plenty of stories about that this week in the world of professional wrestling. But to continue forward, if you do your due diligence and you engage in critical thinking skills, you will be able to find not only a great place to enjoy professional wrestling with not just yourself, but if you've got, your family with you, it's a great way to spend a weekend. It's a great way to spend a weekend out in the summer in the world of professional wrestling. Because there is a lot of people and a lot of wrestlers out there who are really, really good at what they do, who get basically paid pittance. And every time that I can support an independent wrestler who's doing really good things by training wrestlers, making things safer for wrestlers to compete in ring. My mother actually bought merch this time. She bought her first pro wrestling merch. She got a Kevin Bennett shirt because she's been so happy with how he so does his high-flying moves in a safe manner. And we now have a second Patron Saints of Pro Wrestling t-shirt. because of all of the hard work that Brandon and everybody else in that territory is doing to try and revitalize Western New York. Like I said before, Western New York has been in a massive slog for 25 years. Slog of apathy, sadness, depression, anger, rage at all of the industry in the 1980s moving out of the area. The sting of the Rust Belt. Well, that sting is recovering. People who have the mindset and the wherewithal to be professional business people, to try and make this area not just financially better for themselves, but for everybody else around them, are doing a really good thing. And you know what? It's really nice to have a regional promotion in my neck of the woods. It's doing a lot of the little things. Are they going to continue? Who knows? Are they going to continue doing all the good little things? Who knows? But when the next STW event comes out, or the next regional pro wrestling event that I cover hits this screen, I hope you enjoy watching that as much as I enjoy covering these shows on Wacky World of Wrestling. Well, this has been a sensational spectacle of mayhem at the county fair, episode 46 of Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling. My name is William Fitzpatrick. I hope you had a really, really good time listening in on this particular edition of the show, that you get to see from my eyes and from my point of view the world of professional wrestling from my region, because that is what Wacky World is for. I don't just cover WWE, I cover everything else. I look at professional wrestling from the perspective of a mind of a person who didn't get into pro wrestling until very late in his life at this point. 18, basically. I'm 26 right now. And is able to articulate to you how I feel about the world of professional wrestling at that particular moment, in that given moment in time. And it is currently 4:25 a.m. as I am wrapping this show up. And I hope that you had a really enjoyable time watching this particular edition of the show. I love covering my local regional indies because it's fun for me. And I think that, I feel like the people who listen to this broadcast, which I do share this with the wrestlers, they get such a kick out of it. They're talking, they're talking about these matches. And when you bring a smile to a face of a person who's had a difficult week, I had a gauntlet week this week, and I'm able to cover a professional wrestling show, really good feeling. I mean, it's one of those things that you can do, and I'm not an advocacy person. I'm not really too big on advocacy unless it's in a really serious situation, which I would say, well, use your head, use your common sense there. But when you have a strong regional wrestling promotion, you get way less angry about what's going on with the bigger promotions, because you have that. You have that weird little slice of indie wrestling pie. Might be a couple days stale, but at least you can still hurl it at some birds. But regardless, this has been episode 46 of Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling. And in this case, well, the Fairgrounds food was fresh. I got some Fairgrounds food for my dad when we came back home. And this, unlike most indie wrestling, which, like I said, it's kind of stale sometimes, this is fresh, good, wonderful indie wrestling at its very finest. A wacky, insane spectacle with golf carts, random matches, storyline driven matches, and pure, wonderful sanity and crowd brawling into the stands. Yeah, I like covering these kinds of things. And I hope you enjoy the next episode of episode 47, which will go back into the world of either WWE, or we'll talk about something else on the card here. But until then, this has been William Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for tuning in on this edition of the show. I hope to see you again. You can follow me on Twitter at Fitzpatrick14. We'll see you next time. Have a good day, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you next time. Bye.